Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
And they're off.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
All right, you're welcome back. It is Off the Ball. It is Friday Night Racing right here on Off the Ball, brought to you with thanks to Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. You can visit hri.ie, check out their Twitter account at HRI Racing, and use the hashtag every racing moment. Racing is back, and there are classics happening this evening and this weekend at the Curragh, and I'm delighted to be joined as always by Johnny Ward. How are you?
Joined as always. Is this like your first time actually presenting this show?
I've presented this many times, Johnny.
Okay, well we'll go along.
I'm the regular here. You're the guest.
Let's just get to the actual proper guest. The one and only Jessica Harrington.
I had a big build-up, but Johnny's just gone straight in there. Jessica Harrington, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, and it's lovely to be on Off the Ball.
There's many downsides to not being able to attend racing, but I'd imagine this is the main one, that you ordinarily, on a day of a classic, you probably get to the course quite early of a big race and you wouldn't have to be doing these type of interviews.
Well, exactly that. Like, it seems very strange, sitting here, and I've got horses in every race this evening at the Curragh, and I'm sitting here, walking my box, and then shouting at the television. I just find it very, very strange.
Sounds like a lot like Johnny Ward's house, I'd imagine.
Well, yeah, it's been, obviously there are restrictions on journalists, there are restrictions on trainers, and I'd hope that they'll be eased. Jessica, how frustrating is it? Because obviously there are run-of-the-mill meetings that you can miss and so forth, but this is like seminal kind of days in your career, and unfortunately you can't go. Yeah,
it's just annoying that, that they've decided that people over 70 couldn't possibly be healthy enough to go racing. Look, it's annoying because at least if you're there, if things happen at the last minute, you're there to make a decision about them. Sitting at home here, someone has to ring me, or things can go wrong, and I just hate not being there.
Well, just on that, because we're talking about Albina. Albina obviously disappointed, or one disappointing run maybe last year was when she wasn't quite herself. And I remember looking at her in the parade ring at the Curragh on National Stakes Day, and I didn't think she just looked to be a little bit kind of maybe not herself in the day. And we've Siskin running tonight, who obviously boiled over in the stalls the last day he was declared. So there are things that can go wrong, and unfortunately you can't do anything about it because you're not there.
It's very true. Things can go wrong, and what happened with Albania, she was in season that day at the Curragh, and I couldn't understand why she was trying to buck and kick all the way around the parade ring, which is really unlike her. But the good thing is that at least now we know the problem, and she's been fine, and she's run twice since she won in France, and she ran a great race in the Breeders' Cup. But again, we've had a slightly funny build up to the racing because we haven't been able to have any prep runs.
Could you talk to us about that then? Because I'd imagine at the start of the year, you sit down, you start put a plan together in terms of prep races and the ideal scenario building up to the big races of the summer. When suddenly then everything is paused and you're not sure when it's going to come back, and when it does come back, suddenly it comes back quick and fast. How have you had to alter things, and how difficult has it been to try and get your horses right? And looking at how things have gone over the last week, you very much have them right, but how difficult has it been to try and change probably everything you had planned for the entire year?
Yeah, it was, because the whole planning for those horses and fillies and the colts, which are going around the classics and big races, is that you really start your planning when they come back in January, and then you build up. And we were well on the way of building up when racing stopped, and then no one knew how long it was going to be stopped for. So you were sort of half putting them on the back burner and half still doing a bit, and you weren't sure. And then there were all sorts of things. Oh, it'll be back in the beginning of May. Oh, it'll be the middle of May, and then finally we got the actual date, the 8th of June, which was actually great to get sort of the actual date, and we knew where we were going. So all the horses had a slightly stop-start, build up to the races, which has not been ideal. But look, the horses luckily are running well, and I just hope that Albania arrives there fit and well this evening.
Just before, Jessica, we get into this weekend and what we can expect, can you just take us through the last few months then? Because you mentioned the frustration of not being able to be there and the expectations on over 70s, or the lack of expectations on over 70s in some ways. Cocooning for the last couple of months. Have you had to cocoon? Have you been inside the vast majority of the time? You've been able to get out and do your normal work across the week, or have you had to change things completely?
I've worked normally, totally normally. I've been out every morning from 8 o'clock in the morning and do all the work with the horses and work in the garden all afternoon and walk every evening. But I didn't leave the place. I was always on Commonstown. For the whole of the lockup, I didn't leave the place until I was allowed. Then when we started taking the horses back to the Curragh, I drove as far as the Curragh and straight back here again. So I actually, it's a very strange thing to say, but I haven't been near a shop or a supermarket or anything like that. And I've just stayed here and been working away here. So I've been very lucky. And of course, the weather the whole way through May was absolutely beautiful. So, I was outside the whole time.
And how did you deal with the constant talk of the over 70s and the vulnerable? And you have to understand fully where the public health advice comes from and the vulnerabilities that are there for lots of over 70s. But there's also many who are just over 70 who would feel that they are in the full of their health and wanted to get about their daily business. But I can imagine on the mental toll of every time you switch on the radio or the television, the over 70s, the over 70s, the over 70s, the constant telling of the risk that you are at must get on top of you from time to time.
No, because I think, at the end of the day, you've got to take your own destiny into your own hands. And I'd been in Cheltenham. I came back from Cheltenham. I didn't go anywhere after Cheltenham. I then, except here and out in the yard, and I just took the view that, keep yourself fit, keep yourself healthy, take as much exercise as you can, and if you're going to end up getting it, you're going to end up getting it. But I tried not to put myself at risk of getting it, but yet still went on about my own business.
I just wish people in government would just listen to what Jessica just said there, because that is exactly what I think people should be thinking in terms of this. And the government, to my mind, was doing what it felt was right for the people initially in terms of people going into lockdown. But we had a situation the other day. I was watching a race at Leopardstown, and some of the protagonists in the race, Jesse had a horse running that ran well. Kevin Prendergast had a horse flying home on the outside. You had Jim Bulger having a winner, I think, in the following race. And then you have Dermot Weld, whose horses are trying to hit a bit of form. None of that four can go racing at the moment. And I think elderly people, and I say that with a very, very small e, have been treated a little bit in a sort of a slightly patronising, condescending manner, because Kevin Prendergast in the Racing Post maybe 2 weeks ago said, I'm 88 in a few weeks, I don't give a damn, I want to go racing. And I think racing people are made of hard work. And I think the only thing, I suppose, Jesse, the benefit for you was that if I live in an apartment complex, so the lockdown was very hard on me. At the very least, you had your yard, you had your horses, and you were able to get on with your daily life. But it has been very frustrating, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I got on with my daily life, and that's where I was very lucky, and my family worked for me. So look, I was seeing them. I was lucky enough to see them every day. And look, we just got on about it. I was careful around the lads, stood back, kept my 2 meters distance all the time. I never saw them inside. There was always, we were always outside. So I really think, if I felt I never felt in any danger from them of getting the virus or anything. I probably will end up getting it. But look, if I do, I do. And that's my attitude. And I think if you keep yourself fit and healthy and eat well, you get through it. And yes, it's frustrating now not to be able to go racing, because quite honestly, the way I look at it, the Curragh racecourse is a very big racecourse, and it would be it'd be difficult not to be 12 meters apart, let alone 2 meters apart there.
I suppose, Nathan, I'm not trying to be a cheerleader for horse race in Ireland, and I believe that, and I think everyone believes that the restrictions on the likes of Jessica at a venue like the Curragh that basically costs around 90 million to develop and is this massive open space in the Curragh Plains, it's absolutely bonkers. But in defence of HRI, an awful lot has happened since HRI tried to get racing back, did get it back, and effectively went to any length at all to get it back. And one of those lengths included this nonsense But in fairness to HRI, at the time, the whole country's attitude, I think, has changed a lot in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I will say that HRI just want to get racing back at all costs. And as much as Jessica can't be there, at least we've classic racing this weekend.
Yeah, and I think, listen, it's clearly not as simple as certain people being able to accept that they may or may not get it. There's also people who'll have to work at those courses who may not be in a position where they feel that they can get it, or maybe going home to people who they live with who are in a particularly vulnerable position. So it's an incredibly difficult situation for the authorities. And obviously, the government, like everybody else, are learning as this goes along. But it is good that we do have racing back. The other side of it, Jessica, just over the last few months, is the pure business side, that suddenly all income, all prize money drops off a cliff for 3-4 months. Has that been difficult to get your head around as well?
To start with, I was in a complete panic, and there's no doubt about it, because when we had lockdown, no racing, first thing you think, God, owners want to take their horses home. The only thing I was very lucky in was the fact that I've got a lot of flat horses as well as jumpers. I said to all the owners of jump horses, we'll put them out. It doesn't look like there's going to be any more big jump racing for the moment until the autumn. And with the flat horses, funnily enough, all the 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, they would stay in training anyway, because a lot of the 2-year-olds wouldn't be running anyway until July or August. So, we kept the numbers up. We were lucky enough that we kept all our staff, and so Emma and the people in the office here did a great job in scheduling everybody so that they could do what they wanted to do, and the ones that didn't want to work didn't work. And it was a bit of juggling to start with, and then we settled into a routine.
Looking at the flat then, because most people, Jessica, would associate you with the jumps and winning Irish Grand Nationals and Cheltenham Gold Cups. Right now you are leading the Irish flat trainers race for the title. Is it going to last?
I have no chance of winning that.
Is that the first time it's ever happened?
But anyway, listen, there's a lot of trainers that have got a terrific amount of firepower. I'm lucky this year. I've got a lot of very nice horses. So, but I don't expect to be challenging for the leading trainer award.
What are you now, Jessica? Because I was talking to Nathan about this beforehand. And I was saying, yeah, she took the plunge with all these flat horses fairly late in her career. And I was kind of thinking, she's actually probably more of a flat trainer than a jumps trainer now. So maybe the best person to ask is actually yourself.
Well, I tell you what, I have. I would now, I started off as a jump trainer. I then we became sort of dual purpose, and now I'd say I'd be probably 2/3 flat and 1/3 jump. This time of year, I'd be absolutely, the majority would be all flat horses in. I've got a few summer jumpers in, and then we'll have a changeover in the autumn, and the jumpers will come in, and away we go for the winter. So it just keeps me out of harm's way. I have to work all the year round.
Do you ever pinch yourself and say, God, this just happened all of a sudden, in that, over the course of a couple of years, maybe a little bit longer, you've gotten these gorgeous horses, mainly these fillies that you've had, and all of a sudden, it's just common that you might have a classic runner from somebody that we would not that long ago have almost primarily associated with jumping.
Yeah, look, it's just unfolded. It's the usual thing. You get one good horse, and then you get sent some other horses, and then other people send you horses, and look, I've been very lucky to have some really nice homebred horses, for the Nearchus's and a lot of other people as well. And they just, it's just lucky. And then I've been lucky enough that they were some use, because you could have some beautifully bred horses that are no good, that can't run or are unsound. So I've just been lucky, and, take your luck when you can get it.
Is there a radically different skill set needed for training jumps horses and flat horses? Is it something that's come quite naturally to you?
Not really. It's you all horses. You condition them. You get them fit. They basically do all the same work, and then it's just a question of keeping them sound, keeping them healthy, and hope that when you press the pedal or the accelerator, that they have a bit of speed.
Looking at tonight then in the 2000 Guineas 640, start for that. So by the time this goes out in the radio, we'll know whether Free Solo has done the business or not. Currently around 12-1. What sort of chance?
Listen, he's a lovely horse. He only had 2 runs last year. He was third first time out, and then he won a maiden in Leopardstown very impressively. Since then, unfortunately, he had to have a chip removed from his knee, so he didn't run again after Leopardstown, and he was back in training, and he's a horse that would have definitely benefited from having a run in April, but that's not happened. So, the question was, do we throw him straight into the 2,000 guineas? And there's only one, it always was his aim to run in it. So we've tried to get him as fit as we can, and he seems to be in good form. I think he'll stay the mile very well, and look, he's taking his chance, and we'll see what happens.
Do you know much about that family?
There's a lot of very good horses in there that have got a lot more experience than him.
Sorry, Jessica, do you know much about that family? Because just looking it up, I imagine you haven't had many showcasing horses, but the dam is actually a sister to Yucatan, and this might be her first foal, so you'd imagine they're very, very excited. She's a Galileo mare, what she might actually do.
I know they're very excited about the pedigree. It's one of the Nearchus' good pedigrees. He's, funnily enough, the first showcasing I think I've trained. I've got a couple more this year. And he always was a beautiful horse. He's actually the only colt I had last year for the Nearchuses. So, he was kind of precious getting a colt from them, because normally I'd only ever got fillies. And so, he just is a gorgeous looking horse, and he's got a pedigree to die for, being out of a Galileo mare. And it's a great back family, which I think do stay.
And it's a beautiful influence as well, in that he would have that speed influence. So that probably brings us a little bit back to that question about stamina. Where do you see him in terms of how the race might pan out? And I guess it's been interesting over the last week with the ground so fast that it's primarily paid to be on the pace. So obviously Shane isn't lacking anything confidence, but how do you think he might kind of ride him in the race?
I don't know. I had a word with Shane this morning, and I'd say we're pretty confident that he'll stay, and there might be a few horses in that race that mightn't stay. So I would say he'll probably have him up near the pace, unless they go completely mad.
Speaking of Shane then, and the conversation you had this morning, and from what you've learned of the past week of having to watch at home and train from home, how often are you going to be on the phone over the course of this evening?
I won't pick up the phone again to Shane. Okay. We've had our conversation. Kate is up there. If she's got a problem, she'll ring me. Other than that, not being there, I can't do anything. So, I've got to trust them to do their own thing.
Got to mention Kate actually, because without moving on necessarily from the Guineas, Kate had told me about this. This is obviously going back to it was a Cheltenham preview night last year. Kate had told me about this this filly, this big filly, possibly she told me by Zoffany, but she basically told me to keep an eye out for her. I missed when she ran at the Curragh. She won first time out, and obviously your Guineas runner in terms of the 1,000 Guineas has been special from all along, because Kate wasn't basically talking as if this filly wouldn't be anything that she didn't turn out to be.
She's been an amazing filly. I loved her from the moment I saw her. Big, strong filly, does everything in her own stride, and she's just a very, very nice filly, and great attitude, which helps. And she just got her only blip last year, as we probably touched on earlier, was just when she ran in the Moy-Clare, and she didn't run up to scratch. And it's actually a funny story, because she wasn't actually meant to go to the pre-Marshal Boussac. The other Nearchus filly, Alpine Star, was meant to go there, but she pulled a muscle. And I was so cross with Albania, having been not run well in the Moy-Clare. I said, well, she can jolly well go to Paris and run there. And then she went over there and redeemed herself, and went on to run very well in the Breeders' Cup.
I love Master Craftsman as a stallion, and I loved Alpha Centauri because she was she was a beneficiary of sexual discrimination, I would argue, because she was getting weight off colts that she was bigger than. But how does this one compare?
Albania.
Yeah.
She wouldn't be as big as Alpha Centauri. There's very few fillies I have that are. Well, I have one this year that is as big as her, probably bigger. But no, she's a good, strong filly, and she did very well over the winter. She developed very well, and she still seems at home to have great attitude.
Do you worry about the opposition here? So Aidan has a really good line to the best of what's on offer in Britain, because Love absolutely bolted up last Sunday in the Fillies Guineas in England. He has a couple of Galileos in this race as well. Are you one of these? Barney Curley said, "I never worry about the opposition." Then again, he might have had a horse with 50 pounds in hand. But are you worried about the opposition? Or are you just happy I'm where I want to be today?
Well, look, I've got her as well as I can. Of course, I worry about the opposition. I actually worry about every single horse I can see that could possibly beat her. So I do worry about all the horses in it, because you wouldn't be natural if you didn't.
And in terms of her sort of prep for the race, did you do much that you wouldn't have done otherwise, because you couldn't get a run into her? So what did that entail in terms of her prep?
We took her over to she went twice to the Curragh and just worked. We had to get her away from here because, they'd been here for a rather long time just doing the same work. I'm lucky enough I got 3 different gallops, so we can move them around on the gallops. But, it's great just to get them away. Even, going in a lorry, going to a new place. Normally with a filly like that, she would have had a racecourse gallop. But we couldn't do that. So we've had to rely on the Curragh schooling grounds. And of course, the ground has been so quick, we haven't been able to get on the grass. So we've just been working up the Old Vic, which is an amazing gallop, and I love it.
And whatever you've been doing, Jessica, obviously has been working as well. When you look at the last week, a treble on the opening day at Naas, a double at Navan, a couple of winners at Gorham Park yesterday as well. Looking at the 2 of those horses over the weekend in the Guineas then, despite the fact that Free Solo hasn't had much time on the track over the past year, you must feel huge confidence in how your horses have started back over the last week. Yeah,
I'm delighted. You're always worried when you've had a gap like that. Oh, have I done too much? Have I done too little? Are they ready? Overcooked, undercooked, all the things that flash through your mind. And look, we've been lucky. We've had a few winners. We've had a couple of disappointments, I can tell you that. But anyway, but you're bound to get some disappointments. Life wouldn't be the same without them. But on the whole, I'm very, very happy with the form that the horses are in.
Yeah, you mentioned the disappointments, because obviously you were probably going into this resumption of racing thinking, I'm flying it, they're in great nick. The summer weather has benefited them, so on and so forth. And then you do have these disappointments in the Guineas. What was the story with Millie last Sunday, did you think?
I think she probably ran a bit fresh to start with, and then I think she might have got a bit disappointed because she was flying along and she took her back a bit because he thought she was running a bit free. But look, she didn't run that badly. She stayed. The thing I liked about her, she did stay on. She didn't fall in a hole and finish last. She stayed on to finish 7th. She mightn't have just, though she ran on that course before, she changed her legs coming down the hill, which didn't help matters. But look, she come back in great form, and there's a fairly good likelihood that she'll go to the Commonwealth Cup on tomorrow week in Ascot.
Oh, that's fascinating. Dropping back to the 6.
Yeah.
Because she sorry, Jess. Yeah, when you looked at her, obviously her performance in that back end race at Newmarket, remarkable considering the way she travelled, how she finished the race.
Yeah, but the thing you're looking at another Group 1 for her, and if you don't go there, you'll be waiting and taking on the older fillies in the Falmouth, over a mile. From then on, you're on the older ones, and just to have a race against your own generation, I think is a good thing. So that's the plan at the moment. But whether we'll actually end up doing it, I don't know. She's got to do a bit of work at the beginning of next week.
Is she in reasonable nick out of the race?
She came out of the race very well.
Happy days, yes. Well. That's fascinating. Because obviously, will you have many for Royal Ascot, do you think?
I would probably have 2. I'll have her, and I'll have Alpine Star in the Coronation.
But no top hat?
No top hat, and no Jessie.
No Jessie.
You're watching Friday Night Racing here on Off the Ball, brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Jessica, it's been brilliant to talk to you. We're only a couple of hours from the start of racing. at the Curragh. Are you in business mode then when you're sitting down on the couch watching on the television, or are you cracking up a bottle of red wine and relaxing for the evening?
It will be a bottle of red wine, that's for sure. No, I am going. What am I going to do? I'm going to go for a walk at 3 o'clock because otherwise I'll be drive myself mad. Then I've actually got runners in every single race this evening, so I shall get in front of the television with a couple of pals and we'll watch the racing, and hopefully we'll crack a bottle of wine out, open after the racing.
I'm not a big fan of these kind of staged Instagram-friendly videos, but would it be okay if one of your mates just decided to possibly film you, even surreptitiously during the Guineas, just in case you want to see the old reaction?
I wouldn't think it. All right, I'll see if they will. But like, you know, I might get it done for you. I'll see.
And my last question is another horse by Master Craftsman I quite like a lot is the True, and what sort of chance he might have at the weekend at Leopardstown.
He's in very good form, and he's been working well. And if he behaves himself and doesn't become a truant, he'll be very good.
Surely, Jessica, surely you got to go at least some kind of way back into your past and send this lad hurdling, because he could be very good. No?
Oh, I'd say so. Yes, I think
happy
he will
days. He's one to look out for.
And then he would stay very well, and I think it would suit him very well because he's so funny, because he is just so bold most of the time, and he practically decides who's on top and what he's going to do.
Hence the name.
Yes.
Jessica, have you been given any indication as to when you might be able to get back to the race course?
I think around maybe the end of the month, maybe the beginning of July. I don't know.
Okay, well, here's hoping.
I've kind of shelved it now. I you know, this weekend was important. I'd love to have been there, but look, I've now shelved it, and that's it.
Okay. It's been
I'm delighted we got racing back, and you know, as I say, anything to get the racing back, and if it means I can't go racing, well, that's too bad.
Yeah. Well, look, we look forward to watching the Instagram video later tonight when Free Solo romps home.
Well, it would be lovely if it did happen.
All right. Well, very best of luck. Enjoy the evening, Jessica.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
indeed.
Jessica. Thank you.
Jessica Harrington there. Brilliant to have her on the line. As I said, ordinarily, Johnny, we wouldn't be in a position to talk to Jessica because she'd be at the race course, but she has a bit of time in her hands. Pretty remarkable woman. She's great. I actually can't speak highly enough of her. I remember when she was at Cheltenham a couple of years ago, and she had her hand in a sling because she'd injured herself skiing. And at the time, I'd say she was 70 at the time. I think she turned 70. And age is a complete irrelevance to these people. John Kiley riding out horses in his 80s. One of the most, like a man that is absolutely demanding a documentary to be made of himself and his brother Paddy Kiley, riding out horses, the biggest horses you'll find in equine form at the racetrack, riding them out in their 80s. Jessica is a long, long way from there, and she is just phenomenal. People outside of racing probably don't understand. Flat and jumps is just mumbo jumbo to them, but she basically changed her training regime in terms of what she was doing to become a world-class dual-purpose trainer, roughly in her late 60s, 70, which, I mean, I don't know what that's like. That's kind of like a striker moving to left back when he's about 37. Like, so it's kind of mad stuff. But she's just so talented, it doesn't matter. She obviously has a good team there. She's made Shane Foley's career. She's completely enhanced that because he's developed a great relationship with her. She's just an absolute class act. We all know she should be racing. I think everyone knows she should be racing. It's not the end of the world, though, and I'm looking forward to that Instagram video later. Yeah, well, we'll have to follow up on that. The past week, then, sitting watching the return of racing and obviously the Guineas Festival over in the UK last weekend, I'm always wary when these big pronouncements come that this is a huge opportunity for racing these couple of weeks because it's front and centre. It's only the live sport back, and it's a real chance to bring people into the game that maybe otherwise didn't have that interest level. Has it taken advantage of the opportunity that's presented itself?
Questionable, really, to be honest, Nathan. I mean, racing has primarily been on. Irish racing isn't on at the race. It's on racing TV, so most people obviously won't have that. The bookmakers aren't open, so people wouldn't be watching it there. I think tonight's a big opportunity, to be honest, because it is a classic. It's on RTE, and RTE might be another stable, but it is worth mentioning the deal it's done with HRI to broadcast quite a bit of racing. I think like an hour long racing show, or an hour and 10 minutes featuring 3 races. It's quite tight and compact, because one of the big issues with racing going forward is that you could go to a race meeting, for example, today's meeting at the Curragh, and essentially 95% of the time, the sport actually isn't taking place. So we have to attune an audience that is becoming increasingly used to smartphones, and their attention spans aren't great at the best of times, to basically take in 3 or 4 hours of a race meeting in which not much of the actual time you're there is the actual sport taking place. So we have a bit of a challenge, but it's a beautiful sport. I think HD, if HD has done a lot for sort of nature programs on TV, it can do an awful lot for racing, because horses are staggeringly beautiful animals. And I think in terms of TV, we've a long way to go to actually do justice to the brilliance of the sport. But RTE, I mean, you can imagine how much Hugh Cahill and the lads will be buzzing, and the ladies tonight, just to get back there and to be shown an audience, probably a captive audience, as captive an audience as they're likely to get for this weekend, to show them how great our sport is, how wonderful the Curragh looks, albeit with nobody there. And we are the top of the world in terms of horses, jockeys and trainers. Racing has been under a lot of absolutely ridiculous scrutiny, to my mind, since Cheltenham. Mistakes were made, but we're racing people are proud, and I'm very proud that Irish racing is top of the pops. And I think tonight, hopefully, we have a chance to showcase that. The weather mightn't be great, but I think we've pretty much everything else in stage in terms of proper racing.
Just looking back on last weekend, because we had Oisin Murphy on OTBAM during the week, and what a brilliant character he is. It was a real treat to talk to him after Chemical won over in the UK. How impressive a win was that? Fastest time ever?
Sorry, what was the last thing you said? Sorry?
The fastest time ever in the Guineas.
Yeah, so the time, I'm not big on race times, because as everyone knows, we've had really worryingly dry weather in April and May, in which there was very little rain. So the terrain across the tracks, and I presume Britain is similar, the terrain across these tracks is so hard that it leads itself to fast times. And if you have a headwind at Newmarket being a straight mile, if you have a headwind behind you, it can change things. But it was a strong Guineas. I spoke to Aidan O'Brien on Friday night. He was very, very sweet each way on the chance of Wichita, who justified that, and probably the expectation that he would improve as a 3-year-old, because he's a beautiful big horse. He ran a really big race. He was fancied as much as Pinotubo for an odds-on favourite was a bit disappointing. You couldn't say he ran a bad race. Kamiko won a shade snugly at the line. There's obviously an expectation that distance will bring him on a bit. He's absolutely crying out for at least 10 furlongs in my view. And it was a proper classic. It was competitive, and they pulled nicely clear of the remainder, who weren't the worst bunch of Guineas horses. So Oisin is, he's really made a hell of a career for himself. Shouldn't underestimate, a lad from rural Ireland going over and basically becoming a top rider in England, and he's so unassuming off the track as well. It was a fantastic race and great to watch.
Yeah, it is Guineas weekend at the Curragh, and Saturday's card we'll see a €50,000 guaranteed tote jackpot run on races 3 to 6, with a substantial rollover into the pool, while next week the World Pool returns, bringing massive international liquidity to tote pools on Royal Ascot. Irish customers can access Royal Ascot World Pools exclusively through thetote.com. Self-described newly released prisoner Johnny Ward, though his Instagram over the past few months may suggest otherwise. He struggled to adapt to life on the outside last weekend. Can he do better this week and grow the €1,540 Tote Irish Injured Jockeys Fund?
Okay.
I presumed...
Who wrote the script? Sorry, what's going on here? Or?
JP wrote the script.
Okay. Well, I'll get to that.
It's basically the weekly dig at your tips, I assume, is what he was getting at there.
Well, funny enough, my tip was actually Jessie's horse in the Guineas, so she was probably more to blame than me on this one. But in any case, I think Jessie, being the legend that she is, we might let her off the hook. All
right, so tomorrow, Saturday.
I'm going to go for one on Sunday.
Okay.
And it's the horse, the Truant, that I mentioned. I like this horse a lot. I didn't realise he was a bit of a cowboy, but he runs in the I think it's the 4:45 Leopardstown handicap over the mile and 2. 18 runners. What can possibly go wrong? He's running off a nice low mark. Young Tom Madden, top rider, been in great form. He takes the right. It's a good draw as well. It's going to be very tricky for the high drawn horses at Leopardstown. Obviously big fields, but I think this horse should run a big race.
All right, good stuff, Johnny. Anything else you have?
Yeah, I fancy one tomorrow at the Curragh. Ken Condon, one of the absolute gents of the game. A very interesting race. He has a horse who's actually also by Master Craftsman, if I can get that up, by the name of Crafty Madam. This is a 6:45, the Coolmore Calix Gladness Stakes. Now, Calix is a horse the Coolmore are trying to promote. They have a runner here at Lancaster House, but the first thing you should notice about this race is Lancaster House is Galileo horse. He's a 4-year-old, won over 7 furlongs. To me, that's a major negative. I'd be a bit like you on the AstroTurf pitch, Nathan, just running a bit sluggish over the distance. I think he's worth taking on with Crafty Madam, who's around about 10 or 11 to 1 for Ken Condon, and the excellent W.J. Lee, who I think was our guest only very recently.
All right. I'm just going to let you have that little dig for today, since it's...
I feel bad because it was Nathan that had, it was JP that had a pop on me, not you. Anyway. It was. You're out and about. They're still not letting you to the Curragh, though. No, to be honest, it's really no skin off my nose not to go racing. I'm well able to enjoy it at home. I do feel sympathy. If Jesse did, imagine winning on All Ireland as a manager and not being there. It's not far from that. To win a classic, Jesse won it with Albina 2 years ago, but to win a classic is literally the pinnacle of anyone's career. And Jim Bulger and Jessica Harrington, Dermot Wells, Jim Bulger has a serious chance in the Guineas tonight. Jessica has a serious chance in the Guineas tonight and certainly tomorrow. And it is kind of sad that they're not there, but I'm just delighted to get racing back. And I'm sure if you said to Jessica, we'll give you the Guineas, but you just won't be able to be there. Will you take that and possibly do an Instagram video? She'll be like, yeah, as long as you can throw in a bottle of wine, happy days.
Happy days. We shall keep a close eye on that this evening. Great stuff, Johnny. We'll talk to you soon.
Tell your dad I was asking for him.
Oh, well, listen, you tell him, because I think you spend more time talking to him than I do at the moment. So
top man.
You'll be back on the radio tomorrow. Johnny will, alongside John and Dan. Friday Night Racing and Off the Ball brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.